Welcome, everyone. It's Andrew Beach, Executive Coach. I'm a teacher of self-education. I help professionals like you communicate their value to find great opportunities faster, whether you're working or not. That's through a process of pragmatic branding, planning, and networking. Branded networking is what generates activity and results for most of the people that I coach. And I am here to support this community every Friday at Career Happy Hour. Today is Career Happy Hour. Yes, this broadcast is accessible by you and for those that you share it with. So when you have a chance, please, down below, right down below, is a share button. Just click share wherever you're joining from, and we can get the word out about this session. Happens every Friday, 3 o'clock Pacific time, PM. It's happy hour. It's cocktail hour. It's an opportunity for you to get your questions answered about career, whether it's interviewing, market planning, networking. How do I find remote work? I mean, we've covered a lot of topics in these Friday sessions. So there's a couple things I'd advocate. If you do have questions, put those in the chat. I'd really like to see in the chat how I can help you answer some of your questions in today's session. And that could be anything. Each week, things happen. You might come off track. You might go a different direction. You might focus on different companies. You might feel like this week was a week just to take a break. All these things are feelings that we all have as we go through transition. And some of us struggle with doubt or too many opportunities, right? There's various kinds of struggles that you can engage in. So if you are joining today, put your LinkedIn profile in the chat. For those of us that are job seeking professionals, the number one site for career search is LinkedIn. So I'd really encourage you, put your LinkedIn profile address in the chat. That's an admission on your side that you are committed to being open to having conversations with people. Now, I recognize there's a pandemic. There's a lot of, how would you say it, barriers in the way of us actually getting the networking done. But this isn't that community. This community exists. This community exists so that you can have a place to come and freely interact with people and have those conversations without expectation of gain. But the objective would be mutual support. So if you're joining for the first time, let me know where you're joining from and what questions you might have. Now, there's another alternative here, by the way, and that is you could come on live. Live with me to have a conversation about your coaching needs. You will see in the description, regardless of the platform you're joining by, that you can join this session live and you can get hands-on career coaching by me. And I've, at this point in my coaching career, probably influenced well over, I'm guessing either in group settings or individually, probably north of 5,000 candidates. So if you're interested in getting some support and maybe shortcutting your job search, I'm here to do that. And there's thousands of things I could do on a Friday afternoon. The sun is out, spring is here. There's plenty for me to do. But I'm here to answer your questions and provide you support based on what you need. So if you're here, let me know where you're joining from. Put your LinkedIn profile in the chat. I don't really have much to talk about today other than, it was a good week. There's a lot of, so there is some benefit in closure. I don't know if any of you have felt that, but sometimes the open loops can be infuriating. And drive a lot of anxiety. I'm the type of person, I don't like an open loop. I don't like there to not be communication. And so I know what it feels like on the other side if we're talking about you as a candidate and you're in a position, hey, good to see you, Terry. And you're in a position to be interacting with hiring teams and getting into interview processes and not hearing anything is probably more frustrating than anything. And then having to chase that down on your own side certainly is something you can do. But what I've found is that the more you do it, the better you get at it. And occasionally there's an opportunity there for that position to evaporate. So companies make changes. Sometimes they don't know what they need. They may think they need something, and they start interviewing people and they realize that's not what we need. And it's a good thing Terry's here, because, I think in a lot of ways, yeah. Hi, Liad. Good to have you. Terry's here. Looks like we have some folks from Vancouver, BC. Good to have you. Yeah, I mean, the idea as I see it is we need to take control of our career searches, and we need to follow up with HR and hiring managers. And we need to, so if we set ourselves an expectation that that's the responsibility of the employer, then it probably will never get done. Teresa, good to see you. Good to have you back here again. Burbank, and exciting. Jennifer, good to see you as well. So here's the thing. If you have a question and you're joining and you're putting your link in the profile, say yes when people reach out to you through this group. If you see their names here as well and they look familiar, and they reach out and send you a connect request, make sure that you say yes, and that you make yourself available for these kind of things, so that you can indeed have an opportunity to make an impact, even if it is in a small way. Here's what I found. It's spring, right? And spring, to me, this is the time where we should think about planting seeds and prepping our gardens for the harvest. And I know that's kind of a metaphor and it might be overused. I get that. But that's the beauty of networking. These conversations we have today could bear fruit 6 months, 9 months, a year from now, maybe even longer. I've had people that I've coached that were like, hey, this person I talked to like 7 years ago reached out to me and said there was an open position at their company, or that they heard of an open position at their company. It's amazing how fruit is so disconnected from the planting of the seeds. But we don't control that process, right? We don't control the harvest of the fruit. What do we control? We control the planting of the seeds, right? So we can control who we reach out to, the conversations we have, the new people we meet. And that's one of the things I really admire about Terry, is he's always planting. He's always planting those seeds. And that is going to serve him well, I think, for his career, because he's got a lot of stuff in the ground. And at some point, the water and the sunshine and everything that goes on in the world is going to bear fruit for him. And he's likely going to have a bountiful harvest. At least that's how I imagine it. The reality currently may be different than the expectation or the metaphor, for sure. But good. If there's any questions, put those in the chat. Happy to answer. If you want to come on live, there is a link in the description to join the stream live for free video coaching, free career coaching. Otherwise, access the chat, drop your questions in there. But again, the thing weighing on me today is open loops. Open loops. What does that mean? Is that there's a lot of things that we start, but until we have closure on those things, yes, exactly. Thank you, Terry. Until we have closure on those things, they can be frustrating and anxiety ridden, right? I think of all the projects. I mean, just as an example, the home improvement projects, right? Home improvement projects, like I've always when we bought this house, the fence was down, right? It just wasn't very good shape, and finally during this last snowstorm, it just fell over. So I mean, it was one of those things that it was an open loop, something I'd always wanted to do, but I didn't really do it until I had to. And that's not something I would advocate a lot of people do, starting a bunch of projects and not finishing any. I think what they say is focus. What is the word focus? It's an acronym. Did you know that? Focus is an acronym. Let me see if there's any intelligent, I know there's intelligent people here, but let me know if there's anybody that can tell me, what does the acronym FOCUS stand for? Acronym. It's an acronym. Focus. What does it stand for? Put that in the chat and I'll get that in a second. But this fence fell down. And it wasn't until it fell down that I had the motivation, if you will, to actually do something about it. It was an eyesore. It was there. It kind of grinds on you, right? Those open loops. So that's a metaphor, I guess, for job search, is that, hey, I have all these applications. There's lots of open loops. How do I get closure? Or is there closure? Or is it open in perpetuity? I can't imagine that it is. And taking this under consideration, let's see what we can do to close the loop once we open it. What does that look like? Well, many of us may initiate a hiring process through an application resume. That is an open loop. What else is in that open loop, right, that I can do to move this process forward for myself? Is it just crossing my fingers, waiting for the rain to come down so my seeds can get watered? What is it that I can do over and above just putting in an application resume? And there's lots of steps you can take. I mean, I would actually write down what are all the steps you can take after an application resume to improve. I found 33 definitions for the acronym FOCUS. It wasn't a test of your capacity to Google it, because I guess I heard a phrase this week that I thought was classic. It was Google your way to success. And I had to chuckle at that. Or I guess YouTube your way to success works too. I do a lot of tutorial stuff on YouTube to learn how to work technology, or, how to, use software in a certain way, or even how to do plumbing or carpentry. Okay. Good try, Terry. That was a noble try. Finding original, creative, unique solutions. No, it's follow one course until success. Follow one course until success. Okay. Now, what does that mean? That means if I have 10 projects or 10 priorities in front of me, which one am I going to work on? Well, the one with the highest priority, and I'm going to work on that till what? Till it's done, till it's success. Because often we'll start 10 projects at once and give them each 10 projects. We'll get each of them 10% effort, and none of them get done. They're all in progress all the time. And all that does is create stress. So what is one thing? Yes, follow one course until success. Excellent. Thank you. You found the appropriate, at least the acronym that I thought it was. So thank you for that. If you have questions, go ahead and put those in the chat. Happy to answer. And yes, there is live coaching available. Good. So I guess the delay, the delay on the video caught to us. So good. But you were just I suppose guessing or using the search results on the Google to put in an answer. But that's fine. It's neither here nor there. What I'm trying to describe here is that, let's say you have a target company, whatever it is, put that target company in your mind. What is the process for you to follow one course until you successfully have vetted that company? What does that look like? What steps are you going to take to follow that one course until success? Is it to apply to every job in the book? Maybe. Is it to talk to anybody in your domain of interest until they say yes? Maybe. But there's got to be one course that you can follow with a target company to get success. And this group, actually, this community is founded on the premise that course is networking. And if I have a target company, and I can pick anyone in the blue sky in terms of companies, but my objective would be, I'm going to talk to anybody and everybody at that company until I am successful at understanding, is that a place for me? And if so, where do I fit? And that takes time, investment of time. Many of us are so interested in the outcome called job, W-2 wage earning work, that we overlook the value of networking. We participate in the things that are, I think is, who is it? Who said that? Brian Tracy. We participate in two activities as human beings. Activities that are tension relieving, or activities that are goal achieving. So which one is it, right? If I look at all the duties or responsibilities I have in a day, what am I focused on? In fact, if you've ever done this, I really advocate you try it. I would track every 15 minutes. Just take a day, not every day, unless you're wanting to maintain it, and certainly then I wouldn't stop you. But every 15 minutes, just stop yourself and say, what did I do the last 15 minutes? And did that add value? And this is something I should continue doing. This is something that is also talked about by Brian Tracy. Many of you could find that in what is his? I could get it for you. It's the Academy, something Academy. Anyway, actually, maybe I have it on my phone. I'm sure that I do. Let me get it for you. I have his audiobook that I put on my phone, and let me get the name of it for you. It's definitely Brian Tracy. Here it is. I got to look at the. Well, let me see. I might have to hit play on this. Sorry about that. Success Mastery Academy. Success Mastery Academy. Now, he talks in there a lot about a lot of these concepts. I'm just sharing it with you. I mean, I don't own any of these concepts. Some of these concepts are universal, and long before me or even Brian Tracy, these things have been talked about. And if I can focus in on follow one course until success, those things that are goal achieving, and do away with those things that are tension relieving, then I'm going to focus in on zero-based thinking, meaning, hey, if you were to look at that activity today and you had the opportunity to either do or not do that thing, knowing what you now know, would you do it again? Okay, knowing what you now know, would you participate in that again? Would you do that again? Would you focus that heavily on that again? And you have a choice to make at that point, either yes or no. And if it's a no, guess what? You should probably stop doing that thing. And often I see that kind of circular thinking as relates to candidates that are heavily involved in online applications, doing 10, 15, 20, 30, however many you can do in a day, dozens, hundreds of applications, thinking that, hey, numbers will eventually hit. Spaghetti technique. I use spaghetti because the other word probably isn't appropriate. On the wall, and something will stick. Now, if I look back on that and say, would I do that again, knowing what I now know? If you've ever gotten a job from someone you know, or a referral, you know how good that feels. You know how good that feels. Getting a job that you got off an online application that turned out to be a dud, you know how that feels too. So part of the process here is identifying situations where you had success or not in different things. So good. Oh, that's interesting. I wonder why it's showing up that way. Everybody I'm showing here shows as a third degree connection. I don't know why that is. Let me refresh my screen, because Terry Smith was showing up as a third degree connection here in the chat. Sorry about that, Terry. Good. So put up some questions. Hey, if you want to come on live, you can do that. Terry, if you want to, throw on your headphones, or I'm only having H2O right now. It is happy hour. It is an opportunity for you to ask questions. And I don't come here to talk or pontificate. I come here to answer questions and coach people pragmatically through a process. If you have that need, then please put your questions in the chat. Click the link in the description. Come on live. You'll come in the waiting room here, the little green room, and then I'll let you in, and we can have that conversation. But I don't, I come to these things sometimes with something on my mind and an axe to grind, but today I don't. The sun's out. I'm in a good mood. I'm just here to share positivity and encouragement and confidence. So yes, Success Mastery. Thank you, Zai. Yes, it's Success Mastery Academy. And I think I bought it at retail, if you can believe that, off of his website. Yeah, Terry, you're welcome. You're always welcome in my my green room here. Anyhow, so we can chew the fat if you want to, but anyhow, other than that, you can certainly share this broadcast. I know I had a number of people reach out to me and connect for the first time today, saying they wanted to access this stream, and so let me put that out there as a I wonder how I do that. Maybe I just have to copy the link. Let's go to messaging and grab this person. Big believer. Yeah, I'll send her a quick note. Maybe she's here. Elizabeth. I don't know. I can't see people that are actually in the thing. So anyway, that said, I don't see a Terry Smith here. Hey, we finally got a question. Christoph, thank you. What do you do if you just accepted an offer and get another offer that is sweeter? You're done. Right? You accepted an offer, negotiation on that side is over. Yeah, reeling that back in is going to be really problematic. Okay. If you get an offer that's sweeter, gosh, I don't know. I mean, that's a tough one. It depends on whether or not you want to burn a bridge. And sometimes easier to cross the bridge than to burn it. But if you signed off on an offer and you knew another one was coming, I would have delayed as much as possible. Now that's Monday morning quarterbacking. And, we can certainly talk all day long about how we could have done things better in retrospect. But I mean, that's a tough deal. I think that's a situation where if I've accepted something already and have agreed to go to work, I'm definitely going to be in a position where I burn a bridge. And so you have to ask yourself, is it worthy of doing that? Or could you even go back and ask for more? I think that would probably sour the relationship with any employer. So, looks like Terry's here. Let's see what Terry, the venerable, the auspicious, the awesome Terry Smith.
The slightly overbaked Terry Smith in some cases.
What, did you get too much sun?
No, just too many great words like venerable.
Oh yeah. Incredible.
I liked awesome. That was pretty good. I'll take awesome. Awesomeness.
Yes.
Well, it's an interesting comment to the question about the offer. My very, very first foray into corporate recruiting in the 20th century was, I'd been with a corporation for, all of 2 weeks, and I had my very first hire all buttoned up, right, ready to go. Talked to the guy on Friday afternoon for a Monday morning start. He's all excited, fired up, Zoom, ready to go. Monday morning, nada, doesn't even show up. No message, nothing.
Wow.
I'm like, okay. So I tried to reach him, and of course I couldn't. And I finally got a hold of him at 8:00 on Monday night, and I said, want to tell me what happened? Well, apparently over the weekend, his previous employer came at him with something that he did not anticipate, and compelled him to, rethink his offer to join us and leave them. And I said, well, a phone call would have been great. Just saying. You had my home number. You could have called me on Sunday even.
Yeah. But, wow.
Yeah, that was welcome to the corporate world, after 4 years of doing agency work to start my career. That was a little startling. And yes, it was to answer the question very directly, it was a complete bridge burning. I said, have a nice life. Don't let it intrude on mine ever.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny, you probably, and how many years later is it? And you still remember that pain and that experience. It's just not worth it.
No, it's not.
It's just not worth it.
Nope.
And that puts Christoph in a difficult position. Yeah. Because he's already accepted the offer. Negotiating is over.
Yeah, Christoph, seriously, unless you want some guy several decades later to sit in a room like this and say, I remember this guy, Christoph. And I'm not trying to make light of it, Christoph, by no means. I'm telling you that Andrew's exactly right. If you've made the commitment, you've signed the offer letter, you got a start date ready to go, to back out now, seriously, it's just not a good idea. I appreciate the fact that the other offer may seem sweeter. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know enough to know. But, the sweetness of now will not counterbalance the bitterness of later if you choose to make that call.
Yeah, well, and maybe it's evaluating.
Yeah.
What does he mean by sweeter? I mean, I don't have an answer to that question. So the following question I would have for that is, what is it going to mean if you burn that bridge?
Yeah.
What are all the bad things that can happen over the next 3, 6, 9, 10 years, right? Decades in your career.
Yep.
And are you willing to take that risk? So there's that side of it. The other side of it is, I don't know what sweet is. Is it just more money? Because it's not always about money.
Yeah.
Right. Is it a private jet? Is it free soda pops? I mean, I don't know what sweeter is.
Right.
And everybody's got their thing, right?
Yeah. Everybody's got a threshold.
Yeah. If it's just a dollar amount, but the other work is compelling, I mean, there's more to it. How compelling is the work? And so anybody that goes through an offer phase has to have a way by which to judge, does this meet my expectations? Does it not? And is it truly sweeter? If I compare what I had, even in my prior roles, right? I could look at everything I had prior to that and stack up everything that's important to me and compare it then to the offer I've got or the offer I'm going to get.
Yep.
And so the way I would probably handle that, of course, he says it's hypothetical. Oh, that's genius. Yeah. Okay. So thanks for the hypothetical.
Good grist for the mill.
Right. So the idea here is you start creating yourself a matrix. Get yourself an Excel spreadsheet open. Down the left-hand side, I'm putting all my priorities, and certainly salary, compensation, benefits, whatever there is that's on your radar. And then you start shuffling those things up and down. And what I've found is there's typically a place where you draw a line and say, okay, everything below this line, I can negotiate. Everything above this line, it's just non-negotiable. If I don't get these things, it's a solid no. And yes, I'm going to exercise good faith in negotiating those things. But if I don't have a minimum for, let's say, salary, that's an easy one just because it's right in front of us, right? Mm-hmm. That's easy to say yes or no. Does it meet my budget, my expectations, the job, and what the market says? If it doesn't, then I negotiate that. And if I can't get that, am I going to be happy? Right. Can I feel good saying yes? Would I be successful constantly thinking about how I got screwed on the compensation, So I don't know. What do you think about that from maybe a company perspective?
From the standpoint of
so if you've got more than one offer, we're talking a multiple offer situation. This is a hypothetical where he already accepted and he's trying to reel it back in. Yeah. Which we already established is not what we'd advocate. So now we're saying, well, what do we do with the multiple offer situation? I just like to get the company perspective on how companies have handled that. That, hey, a candidate comes to you, says, yeah, you know what? I'm excited about this. Here's the situation. I just want to be honest. I've got another offer. Yeah. And so I know what that's like having sold real estate, how some sellers would respond to that, but or even buyers, but I'd like to get your perspective on how that works in the hiring business.
Yeah. Okay. So, in the event of a person that comes to you that's a current employee and says, hey, I have another offer. What are you going to do about it? Type of thing in a nice way. We take a look at it and say, what are the things that we could be doing? See, here's the interesting challenge, right? And I had to go through this with a person that I made an offer to, same company years ago, a little bit different outcome. I was able to make an offer based on the role that we were offering him. I was able to make him an offer that was, about a 20% increase on his current salary. And, that just shocked him because he'd been at that same salary working for the small company for several years. And so he went back and he did that very thing. He said, hey, I have an offer, et cetera. And they sweated the poor guy for hours. They were on their hands and knees begging. The CEO's wife came in and cried. And oh, by the way, they matched the number. They matched the number. And then actually they tried to come in a little above the number. And he calls me and he says, what do I do? I said, I'm not going to decide this for you, but you have to ask yourself a question. You've been at the same salary for like 2 or 3 years. And now all of a sudden they can find 20% more because you're going to walk out. What does that tell you about what they were thinking about you the entire time?
Hell of a deal.
Hell of a deal. And he thought about that for a second. He said, oh my gosh, I totally understand what you're saying. And he went back and said, here's my 2 weeks. Thanks for the opportunity, but I'm out of here. And I mean, I left the company long before he did. He was very, very loyal to us, and we treated him well and all that. But, from a company perspective, that's kind of on the buyer end. On the seller end, if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I got this offer, I'm going to sit down and look at it. Because here's the other thing. Now, that was kind of a unique situation in that we were able to offer a significant amount of money more, and that was a driver for him. Not all decisions like that are made based on salary. And in fact, the decision to leave, and this is a distinction I make. You and I may have done this before, but there's a difference between when the recruiter calls and says, hey, Terry, I'd love to offer you an opportunity to check out this company, blah, 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 la-di-da-da, hoop-de-doo, et cetera. And I say, oh, that's interesting. Thanks anyway. And the situation where the same call begets the following response, really, tell me more. The delta is in the decision between those 2 points. Something's going on for me at the place I work at such that I am now willing to listen to an opportunity, right? So part of the exercise that I go through from a company standpoint when somebody comes to me and says, hey, I've got this other offer, I am going to sit down and say, so tell me what's going on. Tell me, all things being equal, the offer may or may not be more money, but chances are it's got something that's appealing to you that we're not doing. So tell me what that is. Help me understand what that is.
And so just out of curiosity, and I don't know what the answer is to this, Terry, or if you're part of the 1% of talent acquisition recruitment leaders, but how comfortable is a recruiter? I'm saying garden variety average. How comfortable is a recruiter having those verbal conversations like that from that perspective?
The recruiter on the outside?
No, let's say I have 2 offers, 2 different companies, right? And I want to have a verbal conversation with somebody before I say no thanks, right? We want to have this discussion in advance to see what we can do to sweeten the offer, if you know what I mean, or to overcome some of my questions, or just as a general negotiating process. Does that make sense? Is that
kind of? If I understand that correctly, what's the recruiter willing to say to get to that conversation?
Or are they comfortable having these conversations, or they prefer to just do it over email? You know what I mean?
Oh, well, okay. Now we're talking. A recruiter that's worth their salt is going to pick up the phone and have the conversation.
Okay.
The recruiter that's going to do all this through email, I have to wonder, if they really have, if they're really in the game or not. I mean, and I don't mean to sound critical of that, but I mean, you and I have talked about this before. Recruiting is an art as much as a science. And part of the art is the communication. And a big part of the communication is what we're doing now. We're talking to each other, right? We're not exchanging emails. We're not, texting each other and so forth. I mean, this is where our tech happy world gets a little bit annoying to me, because the reality of it is that, the decision to move from one job to another, the decision to, turn down an offer or accept an offer, those are human decisions, right? They're not ones and zeros, right? You've made the point of, your spreadsheet and so forth. And that's a great way to quantify it. But at the end of the day, it's a combination of things that's a thought process. It's not a computation. And that's a very different thing. And a lot of it is emotional too. I mean, it may be that day where I made the decision between no thanks and tell me more, something happened at work where my manager just pissed me off for some odd reason and put me in an emotional state where I was more receptive to the call than I would have been otherwise, right? And so the whole point of it is that this is about relationships and about having conversations with people, just as networking is about having conversations with people. Making these decisions has to do with your human thing, right? The thing that, gets you out of bed every morning, what makes you, happy, sad, whatever. And, I would contend, I mean, I'm ranting, I suppose, but, when you do this on email, you don't have the advantage of us looking each other in the eye. You don't have the advantage of listening to the tone of my voice. You don't have the advantage of how my body language is moving, even in this limited environment. It's words on a screen. There's no...
And it doesn't have a shelf life.
Yeah.
So my problem with email is you can't discern those nonverbals, and it's permanent, right? So if you say something in a way that's construed as the way you didn't want it to be, then now what do you do? Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, ever since I've been in sales, we always negotiate verbally first.
Right.
We establish a standard or a benchmark, and then we document it. Right.
Right. You can
so
codify
that we,
it.
yes. And so
But
that
you don't
you're on the same page, you have understanding.
Yeah.
And then when it's paper, it says, yep, that's what we understood.
Yep.
Sign on the dotted line. It's not that complicated. But
So,
I got a follow-up question on that though, Terry.
Yeah.
Similar related question. So for some of our candidates, they may not be dealing with the recruiter that's worth their salt, right? At what point do they, I don't want to say subvert or go around or reach out to the hiring manager, or, how do you see that effectively working without burning the bridge, as they say, with the recruiter, so that you include everybody in that process? And I've seen it used effectively where people will reach out to the hiring manager and copy the recruiter in the negotiation process. But I just like to get your perspective on that one as well.
Yeah, that's a little tricky, only because you don't know what the relationship is internally, right? You don't know if the recruiter is working in an HR department that's more isolated from the hiring managers, or if they're working in a really good, close relationship where they're talking they're hand in hand, and they're, so it's a little hard to predict. I would,
at some point, if you've exhausted your efforts with the substandard, I'm not going to say every talent acquisition person is substandard, but it is occasionally happening where someone's not on their game that day or in that particular requisition. It happens even to the good ones.
Yep.
At what point do you engage, or at least keep informed, the hiring manager, and then maybe transition to having conversations with that person so that you can push that offer through?
Yeah, it's kind of problematic. I hate to say it that way, but I think if you've you've probably, so in the interview cycle, you've probably talked to the hiring manager last, or the CEO last, or depending on kind of how the thing is working. But the hiring manager at some point has made the decision that you're the person, and so somewhere in that dialogue, the opportunity for the candidate to say, okay, we're there, we're simpatico, we're gonna develop a relationship that's going to last for years. I think it's reasonable for the candidate to ask the hiring manager, what are the next steps and who will I be hearing from? And what's your expectation, you hiring manager? What's your expectation of how this will go? Just so I'm kind of prepared for, kind of the sequence of events. I think that's reasonable, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If the hiring manager is really serious about this and is comfortable with it, I'm just trying to think of, various examples of managers I've worked with over the years. They'll tell you, okay, so here's what I think will happen next. Here's our process. And if you run into any challenges or issues or anything like that, let me know so that I can kind of help clear that up a little bit. That's not uncommon, and it's okay to ask for that, right? The hiring manager may be at the forefront of it. Some smaller companies, I'm in touch with a group right now, for example, that doesn't have an HR team. It doesn't have a recruiter. The managers do it all themselves. So it's a straight line. And and that's kind of nice, and it raises their commitment level too, because they know the more they stretch this out, the harder they're working, But I would say that, building the connection with the hiring manager as best you can in the interview process is really important, because that will allow you that flexibility. That manager, once they've made that commitment, once they've decided that they want you, now they're going to work on it, and if they're having challenges with the internal process and you make them aware of that in some way, chances are that's not going to be a bad thing. You have to do it delicately. So.
Good stuff. So let's see.
think we got a question or two.
Yeah, we got a bunch of questions here. Let me see who's next on the list here.
Yeah.
Okay, it looks like it's Deborah. What is the best response both during the interview and follow-up? Thank you. To you seem overqualified. It's perfect for what I want to be doing right now. You want to be so I don't know exactly the context of that.
I think I do.
Okay.
So in the course of the interview, somebody says to you, well, gee, you seem really overqualified for this opportunity. So you've got all this background. I've heard this. Got all this background and experience and so forth. Seems like, you're here and the position's kind of here, right? Mm-hmm. And my kind of standard response to that is, you may feel that way, but what you get is not just the fact that I've done this a lot, but what I've developed, I believe, is a level of wisdom that I think can add a ton of value. And I'm really interested in helping you in that way. I can provide that wisdom. And if that's what you're looking for. Now, if you're just looking for somebody to go execute on what they've been told to do, that might not be me, right? But I like to think that the experience that I've developed over these years seems like a lot, and it is. But what I bring is a wisdom that can, I think, help you in situations that you may not even be aware of yet.
I think that's good. So that's kind of taking the approach then that, hey, you're getting more for your money, really, is what you're saying.
Kind of, yeah. You're paying for this much and you're getting this much.
Yeah. So I mean, not knowing the context of this specific situation, I don't know that I know exactly how to respond or how to get Deborah effectively, but it's not uncommon that people have presented themselves overqualified to a role, meaning, hey, if you looked at the role description and it said 5 years experience for a senior director, I'm just using that as an example, but you know what I mean. Right. I don't know any senior directors with 5 years experience. That's just me. Right. But let's assume that's the case. Great. And you send them a resume with 25 years experience. What have I just done? I've just now deliberately positioned myself as overqualified because I sent them 5 times as much experience as they asked for.
Right.
And not that I'm asking you to devalue your experience or even think it's not relevant. It is. It's just not relevant to that context. So would I truncate my resume? Absolutely. If they're asked, now you could probably confirm this, Terry, whether or not this is legal or whatever from a company perspective. But if a company's only asking for a bachelor's, why on earth would I present a resume with a PhD?
Depends on the position.
Of course it does. But if they're only asking for the bachelor's, why would I overshoot the target by 2 levels or more?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, it would be so. From a recruiting standpoint, from an internal recruiting standpoint, I would grab that resume and say, okay, look, here's somebody who applied for this position. They're tremendously qualified. Maybe not for this role, but if you really look at it, this is somebody we probably ought to know, because who knows in a year or two what we may need. Who knows what we may need? I mean, this person could conceivably contribute in different ways, right? And in ways that we maybe haven't even thought of yet. And that's a key point, because we both know the literature on how, the vast percentage of jobs in 2 or 3 years are jobs we don't even know exist right now, right? And so, from the recruiter standpoint, if I'm looking at it, I've got, some resumes on my table for a position that's 5 years and a bachelor's degree, and I have this one resume that's 20 years and a PhD or 25 years and a PhD, I'm going to set that aside and say, you know what? I'm going to figure out a way to talk to this person anyway, because 2 years from now, we may have an opportunity for somebody like this, and I don't want to lose touch. They may lose touch.
So let's assume then in her position, in this example, that's what happened. And now they've had that conversation.
They've had the conversation that says, I don't have it now, but let's keep in touch.
Right. Or you appear overqualified, and they haven't made a commitment that way.
Yeah. Well, that's something to be careful of. If they say you appear to be overqualified, that's code for you're too old. So if you start to hear that, you might want to.
Well,
Pro-
or too expensive,
Could be.
or
Except we have to-
dissatisfied, or troublemaker, right? Problem child, right? Because now it's like, oh, I'm going to be disgusted with what I took. I took something beneath my capabilities, and I'm going to do nothing but complain about it the whole time I'm there.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that works to your benefit. And she just followed up with another chat here saying, hey, it was a contract role.
Mhm.
And so, hey, you know what? These search firms, these recruiters with these third-party contractors, they have a number. And if you're not in their wheelhouse, then they're probably not going to present you as a candidate.
Probably not.
So,
I mean, I've had that happen too. Interesting comment though. Someone else feared that the manager thought I'd get bored and leave early. Okay, well, that tells me that there's a disconnect with what the recruiters understand about the role and what the manager understands about the role. Okay.
Mhm.
So that's a level of clarification that needs to occur. The people that are working as the external recruiters on this need to understand the nature of the role so that they can get it right. There's no, I mean, from an agency recruitment standpoint, I have no interest in submitting people who aren't as close to the mark as possible because I don't want to get the placement. I don't want to overshoot it.
Right. And that's how I get paid.
Right.
And so if I'm one of four and my candidates create problems for the company,
right,
then I'm not gonna do that.
Right.
So,
and if you carry that to the logical extreme, the talent acquisition people are saying, every time I get candidates from Andrew, he always overshoots it. I'm tired of this. Let's get rid of this.
Yeah, let's get rid of this this nonsensical person here.
Yeah, this is not adding value.
Good. So question from Zai. What do you think of the future education hybrid remote learning for universities? Should one go in when there's a full-time offer? I don't know what that means, but
I don't understand the question.
Yeah, me either. But I think hybrid remote learning is something that has come on the scene, not now. It's just been, I think a lot of the universities have accelerated their capability there.
Yeah.
But that kind of thing has been around now since I almost was in college, and that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So that, the internet has offered them the opportunity to do that. And that's how universities like, I don't want to pull out University of Phoenix, but I'm sure they're the first that have kind of expanded nationally, if not globally, with the university program, and have there's just so much available now for free. I had a
colleague that got an advanced degree from Duke, and he lives here in Portland, and he didn't go to Duke. I mean, he went through the program, but he flew in like once every 6 weeks or 8 weeks or something like that, and then they would do a full weekend deal. And then he'd fly home, and then another, so he did that about, twice a semester or so. But yeah, it was all online.
Yeah, there's ways to make this happen. And I think if we're going to call that out as an industry that's ripe for disruption, this pandemic has proven that universities are ripe for disruption. I mean, I'm looking, my daughter's getting ready to graduate college next year, Terry, and I'm looking at the cost of college, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's gone up so much.
Yeah.
Since I was in school, and even in the last decade, it's I think gone up an exponential number. But
well, yeah, it really has.
It's ridiculous.
So I have to wonder,
has the value of that education really gone up that much?
Well, right. Is it a one-for-one relationship? I don't think so.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know if that's the case, but that's it. So if I was looking at education, I might hang tight for a little while and see how this shakes out, because I can see a lot of universities, even here in Portland, some of them have gone bankrupt and may never come back.
Yeah.
And might take their, high-priced real estate and use it in some other way,
Right.
So at least the ones I'm thinking of are both in super high-priced areas.
Right. I know the ones. So yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. So here's Zai's got another one. For an interview with a hiring manager, you've given a choice to Zoom or in person. Any insights on this? I'm going in person.
Me too.
I'm just,
Yeah. If you've got to sit down face to face with somebody, even if it's with a screen between the two of you, do it.
Yeah. Even if it's a window.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're outside, they're inside.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Can you hear me now? Anyway.
Like when you're in the prison, you pick up the phone. Listen.
Yes, I'm going in person, but we talked about this early on, Terry. I think one of the first times you even came on, we did a little session on, what does COVID really mean to hiring and companies, and how are they going to handle this? And I think that's still in play. Companies are really formulating, I think, a go back to work strategy.
Oh yeah,
that's going to be much like university, a hybrid model, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you can stay home if you want to. You can come into the office if you want to. If you come to the office, if you want to get the the vaccine, by all means, we're not going to require you to do that. But come to the office and wear your mask and socially distance and do these different things. And they develop policy to mitigate risk. So I don't think that's any different. If they're offering an on-site, I would take the on-site, but I would want to know the protocols. And it's perfectly acceptable for me as a candidate to ask, what can I do to protect my safety? Masks, distancing. How are you going to handle those logistics? Who do I meet, and who's the person, and where do we go, and where can I wash my hands, and that sort of thing. Take your own hand sanitizer if that's something that you're up for.
Yeah, no, I agree. All those things are basically just process steps, right? The main thing is if you have the opportunity to get face to face with somebody and really, engage, start that relationship, do it.
Okay, so it looks like Christoph has come full circle here. So on the education, if my offer is in ballpark on base salary, but the bonus and other parts are below expectation, can I ask for tuition for MBA instead, or am I unreasonable?
Well, Andrew, I already know what you're going to say.
I don't think anything is unreasonable. I think how you ask can make it appear to be selfish and self-serving. And that is no way to get somebody on your side. The objective here is to think win-win. Okay. And so if I'm putting my needs and how should I say it? That sometimes we come from companies where we have high expectations and they pay the high wage. And when we get into the marketplace, we recognize that, oh my gosh, they were paying above market for my skills. I had it good where I was at in terms of comp, right? Not in terms of maybe the work or the teams or whatever. That certainly is a variable.
Yeah.
But a lot of people will get into that situation and think, well, how can I screw this company out of more money? And not that they're going to do that, but they're kind of thinking to themselves, how can I get more? And I just don't think that's a good strategy. Now, that doesn't mean they don't have tuition reimbursement or that they won't pay for part of your schooling. They may not pay for all of it. And so I would approach it from a more general perspective by asking questions, which is what I advocate. And this is why having verbal conversations and being comfortable with those verbal conversations with an HR person or the hiring manager is really helpful, because then you can say, okay, well, what if, and just do a what if scenario. I recognize that the base salary is here and you guys don't have room to negotiate on that side. That's fine. What if we did this? What would that mean? Is that something that the company you could get approved through the company?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it kind of opens their mind to say, okay, this person is looking for, they're not satisfied with this. We need to make them happy. And a lot of, at least in my estimation, a lot of candidates are not comfortable having that conversation. Why? Because they don't want to lose the offer.
Yeah. And so let me add just a bit of a nuance on that from the other side of the table.
Okay.
Once we've committed to making an offer to somebody, particularly, no matter what, I mean, if it's somebody that we want to hire, right? And as long as they are not out in the universe someplace on their expectations, and as long as they are, reasonable in the way they approach it, more often than not, we'll negotiate, right? Because we've identified that this is somebody who can add value to our organization. And we want to make sure that we make that happen. It's not like we're not saying, oh, gee, this is our number one candidate, but if they don't work out, we can always go to our number two candidate or our number three candidate. Yeah, it's cool. No, it's not. No, we've made a decision. We want to hire you, right? So the point of it is that within reason, being reasonable in your expectation, being reasonable in how you approach it, there's room for negotiation. I come from a school of you want to make the best possible offer you can to the person, so that one, you don't have to negotiate much, but two, you want it to be clear to them that you want them to be part of the organization and that you're committed to that. And so you're going to make the best possible offer you can. And and that would seem to be intuitively obvious, but in a lot of cases, it's not. It's amazing how many organizations go, well, let's see what we can do with the numbers and so forth. And I come from the background that says, no, let's do this right. Let's make them happy. When they show up on the first day, they're thrilled. They're so happy to be there.
They can't wait to start, right?
Yeah, exactly. Instead of saying, hey, I can start on, in 2 weeks on Monday, they're like, hey, can I start next week? That's how you want them to.
Yes. Yes. Good. Yeah. So I think Christoph had a follow-up to this. Of course, I am just saying it this way to you, gentlemen. The truth, I would ask for me to grow to more strategic role that would bring more value to the team. Now, certainly that's, we can't lay out all the negotiating items, right? But if that's important to you to be successful in that job, even though the salary may not be where you want it, then, maybe you have a 6-month review and say, hey, if in 6 months I hit these targets or these gates or these KPIs, whatever you want to call it, then we take a look at compensation.
Yeah.
Or a level set, right? You get a level bump.
And anyway, we do that, or at least we did in a previous company for many years. We did that all the time.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not, I think keeping in touch with total rewards across the industry and competitive landscape, I think your organization is at a disadvantage.
Agreed.
Because then you're not being seen as proactive and concerned about your people. It's just not, I've worked in too many organizations like that, and there's so many that exist. And, the one thing I appreciate about you, Terry, is we see eye to eye on a lot of these concepts. Mm-hmm. And the challenge that a lot of our candidates have is they're not interacting with people who are interacting with companies for the most part that follow those best practices. And so we always have to provide some additional ways for them to get around some of these limitations. Mm-hmm. It's just the way it is, I suppose.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but where I come down ultimately is, you want to do right by the people you hire, because you want them to have a good experience working for you, and you want them to be happy, and you want them to be, or if not happy, at least you want them engaged. You want them to feel like they're part of a team and that what they do makes a difference. I mean, those are the things that people value. I was talking to somebody earlier today about, the sort of the whole issue of, what appears to be sort of a millennial thing around, working for organizations that, are committed to, to values, and to making the world a better place and so on. Well, that's not necessarily just a millennial thing, but it seems to be more prevalent in this current environment, let's say. So, my point to that is, yeah, of course. And if you don't have, and if that's not who you are, and there are plenty of companies out there that don't necessarily do that, then you have to be able to tell the story as the company of what's going to entice the right people to come to work for you. Because if you're a bank or whatever, I mean, that's maybe not the best example, but if you're a money institution of some kind, and the only thing that's important to you is monetary growth, quarter over quarter growth type of stuff, and that's what drives your business, then you want to, that's the story you want to tell, because you want to be able to bring people who are motivated by that to your organization. You're not going to motivate people who are interested in, making a difference for the world, right?
Yes.
I mean, maybe a little bit, but you need to know what your own story is so that you can tell it in the right way so that the right people hear it.
Nice. You got it, Terry. Hey, so tell me, what's outside of what we did today, what's one thing you learned this week that you'd like to share?
What did I learn this week? I learned, okay, so I learned the value of making connections with people that know more stuff than I do. More specifically, I'm working on a project right now, and I got stumped on something. It's like I just couldn't quite break through and figure out what do I need to do here? How do I need to do this piece? And I thought about a colleague of mine who knows that particular work inside and out. And so I just pinged him and said, "Hey, do you got 10 minutes?" He's like, "Sure." So we got on the phone, and I said, "I'm just struggling with this." He's like, "Oh, well, try it this way." And he didn't tell me what the answer was, but he told me how to get to the answer. And that was beautiful, because then I learned something about how to do the work, but I also had it reinforced that, you're not a department of one out there. We have connections and professional contacts for a reason, for many reasons. But one of those reasons is sometimes you just need a little help. That was my learning for the week.
Nice. And don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid.
That, right? Yeah. Don't be afraid to reach out to somebody, and admitting you don't know something.
Yeah.
That's huge. Well, thank you, Terry. I appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you.
I think we burned up the hour, so hopefully you have a great weekend and enjoy your happy hour cocktail if that's something in your future.
It might be.
So, all right. Me too.
All right.
As soon as wife gets home. So anyway.
Very good.
All right, Terry. Take care. Have a good weekend. All right, everybody. Thank you for coming today. This is Career Happy Hour. It happens every Friday, 3 p.m. Pacific time. You are welcome to invite other people to come. It's one of those things that every time I come to LinkedIn, there's a little share button down at the bottom. And if you learned something today, let me know what you learned that you're going to apply or take away from today's session. I really appreciate your attendance. I'd like you to interact with others in the chat. Look at the people that have posted their profiles here and connect with them and have offline conversations. So take care, everybody. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next Career Happy Hour.